I am willing to bet that 80% of your arguments go nowhere, and it's not because you don't love each other, it's because you're making two mistakes without even knowing it. Number one, you're either confusing facts or opinions with feelings, which will not get you into problem-solving mode. And number two, you're probably answering questions with the answer, which is actually the wrong thing to do when you're fighting. The way that I help couples in my private practice is by teaching the CLEAR method. It turns your conflict from a courtroom drama where someone has to lose into more of a laboratory where you test solutions. And that's exactly what I'm going to share in this video. I really want you to stick around because step 4 is like the abracadabra of conflict that almost everyone forgets. But research shows that it fundamentally changes whether you actually solve the problem or just keep on going round and round in the same pattern of conflict. If we've not met before, my name is Oliver. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in West Hollywood, California, and I love helping people grow great relationships. I've got a weekly relationship email that I would love for you to be part of. I'll put the sign up link below. Here's where most couples go wrong before they even start with effective communication skills. Individuals often present their opinions as facts. So statements like, "You're so lazy," or "That was very inconsiderate of you," are accusations that masquerade as objective reality. So think about this. Every complaint has a secret command. So "It's cold in here" might be a fact, but it could also be an indirect suggestion that you're being inconsiderate for leaving the window open. Partner might leap up and say, "Oh, honey, would you like me to close it?" Which might be lovely of them. Now, I might bug you to be more direct in future and ask for what you need. But in a conflict situation, a comment like, "You never help with the dishes," might also be a fact. I would imagine it's a bit of an exaggeration too, but in a similar way, there's an indirect suggestion that you're not doing enough, that you're lazy, that you don't help me. The person who's listening to this is now put in a position of having to either accept or reject the content of what's being said, but also how it defines them in the relationship. Perhaps they did leave the window open and accept that it is inconsiderate of them to have done that, but your partner is absolutely going to reject being defined as lazy with a comment like, "You never do the dishes." So they will become defensive and either counterattack or retreat, neither of which help solve the problem. So this is all a very long way of me saying that to communicate effectively, one has to shift the focus from the other person's character to one's own feelings. So the C in the CLEAR framework stands for claim your view, and it means making a very specific shift. Stop taking pictures of their bad behavior, flip the camera, and take a selfie. You're only going to share your internal experience. You are the subject of this conversation, not them. So instead of talking about your partner, what they did or didn't do, you talk about yourself and your feelings in relation to what happened. So instead of "You are so inconsiderate," you say, "When the dishes pile up, I feel overwhelmed and lonely." Instead of "You never listen to me," "I feel disconnected when I'm talking and I notice you're on your phone." You're not making an accusation then. You're sharing your internal experience. Your feelings are facts. They're not up for debate. No one can argue with "I feel hurt," but they can argue all day long about your opinion on whether they do the dishes regularly enough. The question that you need to ask yourself here is, am I describing their crime or my internal state? Stick to what's happening now inside of you, how it's making you feel. Don't fall into the trap of remembering that time 3 years ago when they did the same thing. That's more of a prosecution. That's building a case. We are not in court. We're dealing with a relationship, and we're dealing with a relationship right now. So the L in the CLEAR framework stands for lock in the docking station. Lock in means physically and mentally committing to receiving what your partner is saying before you do anything else. And I really do mean physically. So that means making eye contact, turning towards them, putting down the phone, lean in. These are very little physical signals that do something powerful. They tell your partner that you are there, you're in, you're receiving, you are locking in. When you're locking in, it's hopefully because your partner has just shared how they feel. And this is your moment where you can make a common mistake. If your partner says, "Why are you always on your phone when I'm trying to talk to you?" your brain will immediately start building up a defense. and say, I'm not always on my phone. That's not true. So you tell them that. You just killed the conversation by answering their question. When your partner asks a question like that during a conflict, they're almost never asking for the informational answer. Why did you do that? Isn't actually a request for data. It's frustration wrapped or disguised in the form of a question. When you answer it like it's a question that you're supposed to answer, you say something like, well, I did it because I thought I had to. You've treated their feelings like a math problem, and you've implied something else, that your answer solves their feelings and that the conversation is over. But your partner doesn't feel answered. They feel dismissed. You address the logic but completely miss the emotion. And it gets worse because when you defend yourself, you force your partner to attack harder just to make their point. So now you're competing over things instead of really connecting. So what do you do instead? Well, you become a mirror. Here's the wrong move. Why are you always late? Your answer should not be, I'm not always late. There was just traffic today. The right move is, I hear that you're saying you're frustrated because I was late again. Is that right? So you're not agreeing, you're not defending, you're not answering the question, but you are proving that you caught the real message underneath, which is your partner's frustration. When you mirror instead of answer, you're keeping the door open. But when you answer with the logically correct answer, you slam it shut. Now, once your partner feels truly heard, the temperature normally drops. And only then can you actually work on the problem together. The visual here is a bit of an odd one. I don't think you can transfer very big files over Bluetooth or AirDrop, right? Sometimes you have to plug in the phone to the computer. The wire connection is faster, more efficient. So you can't transfer heavy data or emotions over Bluetooth. You must be physically plugged in. Put the phone down, turn your body, look at them, make eye contact. And the question that I ask myself here is, how are you showing that you're receiving the data? How are you showing that you're receiving the data? Are you showing them that this is a Bluetooth hookup, or are you wired in and docked? E is for echo. We all know this is part of effective communication, and we kind of resist doing this because it feels robotic or silly. So my advice here is to stop making it about you. Echo is about checking your understanding before you respond. Echo sounds like, what I'm hearing is, let me make sure I understand. It sounds like you are saying. And we do this because we hear what we want to hear. We filter everything through our own experience, our own fears, our own assumptions. Even when we think we've understood our partner perfectly, there's a good chance that we got it wrong. So we paraphrase. Use your own words to describe what you think they just said, and end with the question, is that right? Did I get it? Am I missing anything? Now, the critical part during the echo step is you're not providing your opinion. You're not arguing. You're not defending yourself. You're just checking to see if you received the message accurately. That is it. The most important thing about this step is actually getting on my own nerves because I say it so often. When you reflect what you heard your partner say, you're demonstrating that you're really listening and you're really understanding your partner. And feeling heard, feeling understood is what most people need, even more than they need you to agree with them, because being understood is the greatest gift that you can give your partner. Sometimes when someone finally feels heard, the whole conflict just dissolves, because the real problem wasn't the dishes, the real problem was that they felt invisible or misunderstood. So the visual here is about processing a return at a store. You can't exchange something in a store without proving that you've got the receipt or you actually bought it at the store. Echo is your proof of understanding, your proof of purchase. The questions that I ask myself here are, have I tuned into what's being said and have I checked in to make sure I've understood it? A is agree to fix. And there's a Jedi move here that is the secret source of this model that most couples, including myself, forget. And that is that they try to solve the problem while they're still cranky and heated. So before you move into solutions, you have to remember an agreement to fix. I want you to actually verbalize your commitment to resolving this. And this is backed up by research. When you say out loud, I am committed to resolving this problem with you, something shifts psychologically. You've made almost public promise, and humans are remarkably motivated to stay consistent with their statements. So the version I love to use with couples is, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship? And it often creates this pause, and you can see the temperature drop as the gears spin in my client's head. Because win-lose is actually lose-lose. If one of you wins the argument, the other person walks away feeling defeated, unheard, resentful. But more importantly, your relationship loses too. So it's actually a win-lose-lose. Agree to fix is about both of you explicitly saying out loud, yes, I'm in, I want to work this out, I'm committed to figuring this out, before you move into problem solving. It sets the tone, it reminds both of you that you're on the same team, you're not opponents, you're partners who have a problem to solve together. The visual here is like a very fancy Las Vegas casino vault. It requires a 2-key sequence. You cannot enter the solution phase until both people have put their keys in the lock and turned it by saying, I want to resolve this, I'm committed to resolving this at the same time. And then you get to move on. So the question I ask is, have we both turned our keys to unlock into the solution? R stands for run the simulation. And this is where you actually get to work on the problem. But here's how you do it without falling back into combat. Up until now, you were both playing tug of war. That's two people on opposite ends of a rope. And if you visualize that, it's a line. But we're going to turn this into a triangle. And at the tip of the triangle is the problem. So instead of arguing about who's right, you're going to explore alternatives and test the consequences. It's like running a simulation in your head. If we did this, what would happen? If I did that, what would happen? The key is asking questions, not making demands. What would happen if we tried it your way? What's good about this option? What would we have to assume for that to work out? Are there any other possibilities we haven't considered? How does the solution make you feel? Who else can we ask for an opinion on this? How can we get other ideas? Notice the language there. You're not saying your idea won't work because it's crap. You're curious. You're exploring the tip of that triangle together as a team. You're treating potential solutions like a hypothesis to test versus positions to defend. Real compromise means both of you give something and both of you get something. It's not about, I'll do it your way this week if you do it my way next week. That's kind of keeping score. Real compromise is finding a third option that genuinely works for both of you, even if it's different from what you originally wanted. So you're looking for how each alternative makes you feel, not just whether it's logical or fair, but does it sit right with you? Does it sit right with your partner? If the solution doesn't feel good to both people, it's probably not going to stick. One more thing here is it's okay if you don't solve everything in one conversation. Sometimes you need to take a break and come back to it. That's not failure at all. That's wisdom. What matters though is that you stay committed to the process of coming up with solutions. So the visual here is a requirement for you both to be scientists. So go buy some lab coats if you need to, because you're going to be observing the problem and speculating what might happen if you try something new. The question that I would get you to ask yourself here is, am I being open to all the ideas? Am I being creative? Am I being objective? And when you ask those questions, you're broadening your frame set and your mindset. You're being more open to finding solutions. Okay, so I really hope that was helpful for you. And if it was, hit like and subscribe. I put a new video up almost every week, and I have a newsletter about relationships that I would love for you to join. The link to both is below.